Okay, so part six here. This will be fairly short. It just takes longer than I had left on part five. So with this one, um, you have several different options available. We don't really use very many of these, but you have the covert entry warrant, which is, excuse me, the covert entry warrant is an option available whenever you need to conduct a search without anybody knowing you were there. And so with this one, they call these like a sneak and peek warrant. If you've seen, the Bad Boys movies with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, I forget which one of the two it was, but they talk about the judge gave him a sneak and peek. So with these, basically, you can go into like a business after hours whenever the business is closed. Basically, you pick the lock, go in, do your thing. You don't take anything, but you go in, find what you need, and come back out without anybody ever knowing you were there. Um, we don't really do those here, but it's a thing, just so that you know. Um, then we have the Patriot Act, which gives us a sneak and steal warrant, which is essentially like the covert entry warrant, but it kind of upgrades a little bit. And they're authorized under the Patriot Act. I'm a little curious as to the constitutionality of those, but that's merely from a legal standpoint there. So, with searches of third parties, so your warrant says, go here, find this, and all of that. Well, if you go to Bob's house and you find Bob and Bob's wife and Bob's kids and Bob's friend, George, you can search Bob and Bob's wife and Bob's kids as they leave the house. But if you weren't expecting George to be there, you can't search George as you kick him out of the house, because he's a third party and he's not covered under the warrant. So um, you kind of want to make sure that you include all of the residents and occupants of the residence at the time the warrant is executed in your warrant. So that'll be something that you want to include as a direct quotation. You want, like, quote, all of the residents and occupants of the residence at the time of the execution of the warrant, end quote. Okay. So then we have curtilage and areas appurtenant. So curtilage is all of the stuff that surrounds the house and normally goes with the house. Okay, so this is going to be the front yard, the side yards, the backyard, the carport, the shed in the backyard, stuff like that. Okay, areas of pertinent are going to be all the other stuff around that. So, like here in this background photo, you see the lawn chair back there in the back of the house. And then you see like an incline and some woods in the back and everything like that. Okay, so the curtilage is going to be right up to the back of that chair there, because that's the stuff that normally goes with the house. But then your area is appurtenant if the property owner of this 547, whatever the address is, 547 Happy Lane in Anytown, USA, if they own that area back there where it rises and you have the tree line and the wooded area back there behind the house, if they own that property as well, that would be considered an area appurtenant to 547 Happy Street here, because it's not curtilage, but it's part of 547 Happy Street's property. But so if you include 547 Happy Street and curtilage, then you get like up to the chair, but you don't get into the woods. But if you get curtilage and areas appurtenant put into your warrant, then you can search the entire property. And so then let's talk about use of force in executing a search warrant. Graham versus Connor absolutely applies here. you still have to use objectively reasonable force in the execution of your search warrants. So the thing is if you have somebody who is absolutely non-compliant with your orders that you are giving while you are executing the search warrant, you may use force to compel them to comply with the orders, provided that the orders are lawful and the force is reasonable. Okay, but don't use force unless you absolutely have to. Like I always say, violence is not the answer. However, when violence becomes the answer, violence of action is key. And what that means is you should always seek a non-violent solution. But there are times whenever people will refuse any solution but a violent one. And when that happens, use all reasonable force to put that situation to rest quickly. Okay. So, with that, I believe that's going to be our last slide. So, that's it. And we'll see you in chapter 5.